Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Sever7, and today we are taking a look at the HX Outdoors Rock Fluorite. Sorry, it took me a second to get my mouth around that. Oh, I didn't mean that. That's with the ultimate goal of seeing if it's worth adding to your collection or your daily carry rotation. Now, this knife was sent to me by HX Outdoors. It was free, so I did not pay for this. I do get to keep it. The designer is HX Outdoors, and the OEM is HX Outdoors. What I want to preface this review with, just right out of the gate, this is a $30 knife with a titanium scales and a liner lock. So 30 bucks, and you're getting D2 and titanium scales. That's ridiculous. So as I'm going through this review, I want you to keep that in mind. 30 bucks. Wild pricing. So for starters, we do have these titanium scales. They did do a bunch of milling on it, and the milling doesn't seem super cohesive. Or maybe that's just me. But to be honest, they could have done no milling, and I don't think anybody would have batted an eye. So really appreciate the milling. We've got like this blasted finish to the scales. We do have some slots milled out. I don't like having a whole bunch of holes, but the slots, like I can't fit my fingers in there. They really don't bother me. So I'm fine with them. And they're mostly covered up on this side. We do have a 50% titanium backspacer that wraps around. We have a spot for lanyards. Oh, I just noticed it says titanium alloy right there under the body screw. We do have this, like I'm not a huge fan of the pocket clip because for one, it's going to be shallow carry and it's steel with the 3 screws. I expect steel at this price point, but the 3 screws kind of throws me a little bit. I don't care for that. This thing goes in and out of pocket very nicely one-handed, so I don't have to use my other hand to like pull my pocket up or do anything like that. I just literally take it, slide it right in, slide it right out. Easy as can be. Now let's talk a little bit about the ergonomics. Oh, the acoustics. So as far as the ergos, I'm actually a really big fan of this. Everything's been knocked down and rounded. There's no sharp points. And we have this very nice choke up and pinch spot right here. This gives you a ton of control and a ton of leverage whenever you're using your knife for more precise cuts. So, you know, we've got this, well, I'll talk about the blade in a second, but, you know, we've got some belly and we've got a tip. So whenever we're getting down and doing our like precision cuts or draw cuts, having this pinchability right here and being this far up, like this far choked up, just gives you so much control over what you're doing. I found that it's really nice. I haven't done anything crazy, but you know, I found that it's really nice for like, you know, opening mail up. Even if it's junk mail, I just test the knife out. And having this control makes it way easier. You know, even doing like, I'll be breaking down boxes and it'll have just a really, really small seam in between the 2 pieces of a box. And it makes it really easy for me to get in there, have this control, and just kind of slide right in and then cut across. So while I might not be the best use case for this pinch grip, I love it. I think it's absolutely fantastic. We do have functional jimping right here. It's only 3 jimps, but with how drastic of an angle this poon is, I find that it's enough to lock me in, right? Now, as far as the general ergonomics, they give you a generous spot right here for your pointer finger. You get all of this room right in here for your middle finger, and then your pinky and your ring finger can just kind of relax back here, right? Where it's flattened and, you know, it thins out just a little bit. But you are plenty locked in. And, you know, even if you want to get out here, right? Even if you want to get out here for power cuts, you can. Lock bar access is fantastic. Look at all the room you have to just push and close. At first, I felt like this was a little aggressive, right? You see how toothy it is? But what I realized is I was in the habit of using the tip of my thumb to push it over, and it was a little sharp whenever I did that. But then whenever I realized I have enough room here, I can just slide my whole thumb over. I didn't have a problem with it. So this only felt sharp whenever I was going at it like this instead of like this, right? Most people typically do it like this, where they just push their whole thumb sideways. So, but just know if you go at it with just the very tip of your finger, it could feel a little sharp, right? Pocket clip, I know it exists, but it's not a hot spot. I don't feel it. I feel it enough to know that there's a pocket clip in my hand, but it's not causing a hot spot of any kind. Actually, nothing on this knife is really causing a hot spot for me. It's a very comfortable knife. As far as the blade goes, we have this Harpoon modified, what I'll say is a sheep's foot. Some people might call it a modified drop point, but so Harpoon modified sheep's foot blade. It's a very good general EDC blade shape, right? You can do your poking. You don't necessarily have a ton of belly per se. Like it's not very, height-wise, it's not very tall, but you do have plenty of blade to make your cuts. So, this thing is still good. I wouldn't slice boxes at the factory for 8 hours, but you could go, based on ergonomics alone, you could go for 8. I would just want something a little bit taller blade-wise for boxes if you're going to do them for, an extended period of time. But, just for everyday EDC stuff, even prolonged EDC stuff with how comfortable this is, the blade shape's going to be perfectly suited for it. We've got a nice medium height flat grind. And then we have the same grind up here towards the tip, but we still maintain robustness towards the tip. So whatever poking you need to get done, you can have some faith that this is going to be perfectly fine. It's going to hold up to pretty much anything you want to do with it, as long as you're using the knife as a knife, right? Let's talk a little bit about and this is a D2 blade steel, right? And I know some people scoff at D2, but for $30, I'm happy that it's not, 7CR, right? I mean, at $30, it could have been a lot of things. I think D2 is perfectly acceptable at $30. As far as the action goes, I was pleasantly surprised by this. Let's start off with the acoustics. The acoustics are great. We don't really have a bonus acoustic. We have a little squeak, which some oil would probably get rid of. And then on the drop, let me try to drop it all the way down. We just kind of have like I don't know, kind of like a clop, I think is how I would describe it. We just have a clop. But the action overall feels very good. This knife did have to break in a little bit. Now, normally whenever I get a knife like this, if you're handy with knives, if you know how to take them apart, you know how to tune them, you know how to oil them, and loosen up the bearings and things like that. Typically, whenever I get a budget knife, I can make it feel pretty stinking good by taking it apart and just cleaning everything, making sure the bearings aren't stiff, lubing it up, blah, blah, blah. Adjusting the lock bar tension, things like that. I haven't done that with this knife because I wanted to experience it the way I believe the majority of you will experience it. And that's, you open a knife, you get it. It actually comes in a nice little box. But you open it and then you fidget with it and you start to use it. So I haven't done any tuning to this knife. What you're seeing is what you'll get whenever you open it up. So without any tuning, after just a short break-in period, maybe a couple hours, the action, man, listen to that. And so if you go slower, it's a little duller. If you go quicker, you get that full snap. The reverse flick, I can do it with my nail, but I have really short nails, so I find that I have to push pretty deep in there to do it with my nail. I prefer just to do it with the fat of my finger. But the reverse flick is money. I mean, is this going to be competing with your, your $300 Wii knives? No. But does this action feel... I would say this is at the very high end of what Civivi does, right? It's not guillotine, which a lot of Civivis are. I don't like guillotine. This thing has enough lock bar pressure to, hold itself up. But it feels really, really good, especially at this price point. Like $30. I would have expected this thing to have titanium scales and literally nothing else. No milling, terrible action, right? You just don't see this at $30. Now, I will say that with mine, I am touching the scale, or at least closer to it, on this side than I am on this side. I believe that I can just loosen the pivot a little bit and that'll go away. But like I said, I haven't touched this thing. I wanted to experience it the exact same way you guys would experience it. Now, I don't think this is going to be on every single one of them. But if you get one and it's touching the scale, typically just loosening the pivot a hair will fix that. So just something to kind of keep in mind. Super crispy detent. Let's talk about specs. Overall, we're coming in at 7.28 inches with a blade length of 2.95 inches and a blade to handle ratio of 0.68. Normally, 0.7 is the bare minimum acceptable standard. I don't think this knife looks bad though with its blade to handle ratio. You can see where they could have squeezed a little bit more in. Let's see, try to get you guys some light. Yeah, you can see where they could have put, another 16th or maybe even an 1/8 of an inch in there. But it's not that big of a deal. Mostly because, like, if you guys have ever seen the Kaiser Holdra, that knife gives me aneurysms because it's got a blade to handle ratio of like 47%. No, I mean, no disrespect to the designer. I'm sure he had reasons for doing exactly what he wanted to do. Maybe his goal was to give himself a big, comfy, ergonomic knife, but meet certain blade limit requirements, or something like that. But then, like, I don't know how the knife got green lighted. It's crazy to me. Once again, nothing against the designer. He had a vision and he had reasons for that. If I knew the reasons for it, I'd probably agree with him. But just looking at the knife aesthetics alone with the blade to handle ratio, terrifies me. So that's why I'm such a stickler on blade to handle ratio. And I typically don't like to see anything below 0.7. But I think this knife is doing a fine job. It actually looks like it's got a really good blade to handle ratio, despite the fact that it's, mathematically, 0.68. So overall weight on this knife is 3.7 ounces. And, while it is a titanium scales, it does have a steel liner lock on the inside. So that's going to be what's adding a little bit to the weight. Balance is a little far back. You can have your pointer finger right here if you want to. There's nothing wrong with that. But I really think the sweet spot's going to be right here. Right. So You know, it might be a little butt heavy. I mean, but it's barely, like you can barely feel it. Let's do a couple size comparisons. We're going to start with the third best Civivi next to the Visions, and that is the milled aluminum Civivi Brazen. There we go. So the Brazen comes in quite a bit bigger. The Real Steel Sylph made shorter because I rolled the tip. Pretty darn close to the same size, maybe the same size if I didn't roll the tip, you know what I'm saying? And then my favorite budget knife of the year, I can't even say that, guys. One of my favorite budget knives of the year so far is the Migaron Gotov. And that's coming in quite a bit smaller. So this is also a knife you can pick up for 30 bucks. It is aluminum scales, crossbar lock in D2. This is titanium scales, liner lock in D2. So this knife is fantastic. I have like really nothing bad to say about this knife. It is delightful. However, my preference, while I have started liking crossbar locks, my preference between the two would be a liner lock because it has a real detent to it. And I prefer titanium over aluminum. So, you know, so this is definitely going to be in contention for one of my favorite budget knives of the year, no doubt. I've got a few others that are punching right there next to it. It's largely preference. It's not really is one knife better than the other. It's, you know, what do you value? But, you know, at 30 bucks, $29.99, this knife will be linked in the description. It is an affiliate link, so I will get paid based on, you know, how many of you go and buy this knife. That does help the channel a tremendous amount. But, you know, my opinion of this knife isn't being swayed by that. I mean, at the end of the day, titanium scales on a $30 knife is absolutely incredible. And the fact that it doesn't suck at 30 bucks is also pretty incredible. On their own website, they've got like 75-star reviews. And they're not fake reviews. I mean, these reviews have videos of people talking like, hey, I bought this knife and it's freaking great. You know, so with that much buyer support, with my personal experience and with the cost of this knife, I wholeheartedly recommend this. Wholeheartedly. You just have to understand that, you know, it's a $30 knife. So if you compare it to a $150 concept, it's not even going to be close. But one of them is 1/5 the price of the other, right? So for $30, you're getting a tremendous value, a wonderful user experience, and a knife that you can beat up and not worry about it. If you lose it, just buy another one. And they actually do have this knife in more premium versions with like S35 VN that I think is like 119 bucks. They've got some other knives that are at 30 bucks. I believe they have a titanium button lock that's about 35 bucks. So they have cool stuff on their site. I can't vouch for every knife because I haven't reviewed every knife, but this one I can say for sure is definitely worth your hard-earned money. And I think that once you get it in the hand, you'll be delighted by it. Just remember, the action needs a few hours to break in. At least mine did. So you want to make sure you fidget with it quite a bit whenever you get it out of box. Mine was just a little stiff. Now, if yours isn't stiff, don't worry about it. But if your detent's a little stiff, just know that, you know, after an hour or so of fidgeting with it, that'll go away. So for me, this would be a daily carry all day. I would imagine the same for you guys, but who knows? Maybe this would be a collection piece. I would love to hear your thoughts down below, or for some reason, did this knife miss the mark for you entirely? You know, please let me know. Let's have that conversation. Otherwise, I appreciate you guys very much. Please like, subscribe, and comment. And until the next time, guys, peace.